Arti. We had from Krishna Dulal on the keys, Trey Prabhu on the mridanga, and the Hare Krishna singers in the background was Mother Braja and featuring children. So thank you so much for that, Prabhus. This was welcome everyone to the Sunday feast here in ISKCON, Ottawa. Our center is located at 212 Somerset Street East, right by Ottawa University. And we have a lot of the community that lives in Ottawa here. So we thank you all for coming. And for anyone who's new, we greatly appreciate you attending the Sunday feast. What you just saw was called the Arti. And this is a devotional practice where we take paraphernalia and we offer it back to the Lord out of love and gratitude. And in this way, this is one of the many practices that we follow in Bhakti, that whatever we have, we give thanks and appreciation to the Supreme for providing it to us. And in that way, we continue to develop our attitude of gratitude and appreciating capacity for all that's within the world. So today we have a special guest speaker, Urmila Devi Dasi. She's a Srila Prabhupada disciple, and we're so honored to have you. Thank you so much. Today she'll be talking on Nrisimhadeva, and Yashika will give the introduction there. So we thank you so much. Hare Krishna. And also, we see a lot of letters on the screen, but if anyone would like to come on and make a personal appearance on the screen, we believe in the personal philosophy or the personal feature of God. So we're personalists. So we like to see the special souls who attend the Sunday feast. So if anyone can muster up the courage to get up off the couch and show themselves, we're more than happy to see you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. As Prabhu said, today we're very fortunate to have our guest speaker, Her Grace Urmila Devi Dasi Mataji. She joined ISKCON in Chicago in 1973 and received her first initiation from Srila Prabhupada in the same year. She has a Master's of School Administration and a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership from the University of North Carolina. She is also certified as a Master Practitioner of Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And in 1982 in Detroit, both her and her husband started ISKCON's first day school, where she served as principal for 8 years, and they also founded a kindergarten to grade 12 school in North Carolina in 1990, where she was principal for 10 years. Mataji is also chair of the Shastric Advisory Council to the GBC and associate editor for the Back to Godhead magazine, and formerly a professor at Bhaktivedanta College. She was a member of ISKCON's International Board of Education for 10 years, and is also the author of the books Essence Seekers, The Great Mantra for Mystic Meditation, and Dr. Best Learn to Read, which is an 83-book literacy program for children. In 1996, she entered the renounced ashram of Vanaprasth and regularly visits temples and holy places worldwide, holding discourses on yoga, mantra meditation, and living in spiritual consciousness in the world. So once again, we're very fortunate to have our guest speaker, Urmila Devi Dasi Mataji, and I'd like to hand it over to her now. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, you are muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, we've been doing this for so long and still it's like, oh yeah, I have to unmute. Sorry, I need to do that again. Okay, and this is for 1 hour? Yes? Is that correct? 1 hour? Yes? No?
Yes, 1 hour, then questions. That'd be greatly appreciated. If it goes over, no problem also.
So today we are going to do a meditation on the appearance of the Lord in an extraordinary form called Nrisimhadeva. The celebration of the anniversary of this appearance is going to be in a couple days, but we decided that we were asked to focus on this today. And the specific theme that we're going to look at is the conception of friends and enemies, because that is the theme that brings out this particular story in the Srimad Bhagavatam, or otherwise called the Bhagavad Purana itself, where it's asked, does the Lord have friends and enemies, or is the Lord impartial? And this particular story is given as an illustrative example of the fact that the Lord is impartial. So we're going to start with asking an introspective question. How much time, energy, and anxiety do we put into maintaining or controlling our relationships with enemies and friends? So we can just think about this for a moment. We're going to define friends as someone who helps or supports us, and enemies as those who oppose us or harm us. So we just think about, in a typical week or typical month, how much time, energy, and anxiety do we put into maintaining or controlling our relationships with enemies and friends? So the great saintly person, devotee of the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj, was very much an integral part of this story we're about to tell, says that we should not discriminate in our heart between enemies and friends. We should make our mind equipoise towards everyone, that except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. Says, someone needs to mute.
Yes, just a second.
Is someone else able to have control over that so that I don't have to deal with it?
Yes, in a second.
Okay.
You're muted.
All right, great. If a person is victorious over the 6 enemies, lusty desires, anger, greed, illusion, madness, and jealousy, and is equipoised towards all living entities, for him there are no enemies. Enemies are merely imagined by one in ignorance. Wow, what a concept. I mean, I must say, I find it hard to wrap my mind around this idea. It seems to me that I have friends and enemies, yeah? It seems I have people who help me and I have people who try to hurt me. So does God have friends and enemies? This again is the question that starts the whole discussion of this story. Why does he appear to side with the righteous and destroy the unrighteous? In fact, he says that. Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chaduskritam dharma samstapana prataya anarpaya sambhavani yuge yuge, to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants. Now, the real explanation is that existence favors reality and truth. So this is the answer given to this question of whether or not God is partial. The answer is that the controller of the material and spiritual energies, the creator of the entire cosmos, creates the time factor to allow the material energy and the living entity to act within the limits of time. And this time factor enhances the sattva guna. Sattva guna, sattva means that which is true, that which is eternal, that which is good. We can think of it in this way. Just like a little while ago, I ate a meal, and I ate, I had rice and beans and yogurt and potato and sweet potato and a little wheat and some herbs. And I feel very nourished and energized. But suppose instead of eating those things, I had tried to eat the cup or the plate or the pot. Not only would I not feel energized, I probably would break my teeth. I might damage my jaw. I would damage my digestive system. So it's not that the maker of the plate doesn't like me. It's that a plate is not meant to eat. It's meant to put your food on. It's not meant to eat it. So reality favors truth. And that may look like the Lord is partial. Those who are in harmony with truth are happy, and those who oppose truth are unhappy. Like those who eat food that's designed for your body are happy, and those who try to eat things that are not designed for the body are unhappy. That is not the partiality of God. So here is our illustrative story. This is the story of a father who saw enemies everywhere, and his son who lived above any conception of friends and enemies. Long, long ago, the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Being, incarnated to destroy the demon Hiranyakashipu and free the demigods, the celestial beings, from despair. So we have this great demoniac being called Hiranyakashipu, and he was very angry that the Lord had killed his brother, who was also a very evil person. So he decided that Vishnu was his enemy. And in order to try to hurt the Lord, he asked his followers to pollute the sacrifices, the ritualistic activities of religion, to cut down trees, to burn down villages, and to thereby avenge the death of his brother. And he decided that he didn't want to be killed like his brother, that he wanted to gain great power. So he engaged in austerities in order to gain power. By these austerities, he was able to control his breathing. He was able to control his body so he could live without eating or drinking. He was able to control his mind and keep it fixed in one place. Then the head of the celestials, Brahma, came to him and said, "These austerities you are doing are creating a disturbance in the universe. Oh, you who have to die," that's how he spoke to him. "Oh, you who have to die, what can I give you? What do you want?" So Hiranyakashipu, whose body was restored to health by Brahma, said, "What I want is total rule over all, no rivals, all glories, and all mystic powers." And Brahma had already said to him, "You who have to die." So he thought, well, I wonder if there's a sneaky way to be immortal. He said, "Let me not die from any living or non-living being in the creation. Let me not die in the inside or the outside. Let me not die in the day or the night. Let me not die in the ground or the sky. Let me not be killed by a human or an animal. Let me not be killed by a demigod or a demon. And let me not be killed by any weapon." So Brahma said to him, "Yes, very good. Please stop causing trouble with your austerities." And then Hiranyakashipu, having become very powerful, he conquered the abode of heaven. This is a heaven within the material world. This is not the spiritual kingdom of God. This is heaven on other planets within this universe. Now, at this time, Hiranyakashipu had gotten everything that he wanted. And he became very proud, and he forced all the demigods, all the celestial beings, to worship him. And so one would think that now Hiranyakashipu was completely happy. He had gotten everything that he wanted. But we have some evidence that he was quite unhappy. First of all, it says in the Bhagavatam that he was chastising the demigods very severely and for no reason. So this sort of behavior is a prime symptom of someone who is unhappy. We all know if we meet people who get very easily angry at others and insult others and harm others for very easily over slight things or nothing, that they have some kind of unhappiness themselves. They have some kind of insecurity themselves, or they wouldn't behave like. They're not a happy, peaceful person themselves. And then he was always taking some kind of alcohol. He was always taking some sort of intoxicant. So this is also a symptom of being unhappy. People who are happy don't need to take intoxicants. Right? They're already they're high on life. So by these two signs that Hiranyakashipu would criticize and rebuke and chastise the demigods for no reason, and that he was always intoxicated, show us that he was not happy, even though he had gotten by force the rule of very opulent heavenly planets. He had no rival. He had all mystic powers. He had felt he was going to live forever. He was not happy. Now, while he was doing his austerities, his wife, named Kayadu, had stayed at the ashram of Narada Muni. And Narada Muni had taken care of her because the devas were trying to take advantage of the fact that Hiranyakashipu was doing austerities. And there Narada instructed her about loving devotion to the Lord. He instructed her about the supreme goal of life. When her husband returned, she came back to the palace and she gave birth to a child, Prahlad. I think he had about 4 other brothers and a sister. Anyway, but she gave birth to him after Hiranyakashipu came back. And this Prahlad was a very extraordinary child. He had no pride. He didn't become disturbed when there was danger. He considered everything material to be useless. He had no desire for anything in this world. He could fully control his senses and mind. He was kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he was attached like a sympathetic brother. So it got time for him to go to school. And when he was in school, the teachers were teaching him about diplomacy and how to run a kingdom and how to distinguish between friends and enemies. And he thought, this is not right. This is not right. He didn't enjoy what he was hearing from his teachers. And then his father asked him one day, so what did you learn in school? And well, he actually didn't say what you learned in school. He said, what did you learn from your teachers? So Prahlad was thinking not of his teachers in the school. Prahlad was thinking of Narada Muni, who had instructed his mother when he was in the womb. And there's a lot of evidence that children can hear when they're in the womb and that they can even learn. There's parents who read, mathematics textbooks out loud when the woman is pregnant, and the child ends up being very good in mathematics and things like that. So Prahlad could hear in the womb. And when his father said, what was the best thing you learned from your teachers? He said, give up worldly attachment and serve the Lord. So his father was furious at this because the Lord had killed his father's brother, Prahlad's uncle. And remember, the father Hiranyakashipu had vowed vengeance against the Lord. So when Prahlad said to him, give up your worldly attachment and serve the Lord, his father was furious. He didn't really know what to do. He went to the teachers and he said, don't allow the devotees of the Lord to come in disguise and influence mind. And this conflict between the theists and the atheists has been going on ever since the beginning of time. Those who hate the Lord, those who hate truth, those who want to establish themselves in material power in the world, and those who want to love God and those who are looking for divine wisdom and divine love have always been at odds. And then Prahlad Maharaj said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy by diluting the intelligence of men. Indeed, I am now actually experiencing this, although I have previously heard it from authoritative sources. So Prahlad didn't think of his father as an enemy, but he was astonished that his father thought that he was an enemy. He was just like, wow, This is really amazing. I'm actually seeing what I heard from Narada. And then Prahlad said, persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves. They're unable to see the Lord in the heart. Now, he gave this instruction to his teachers when his teacher said to him, this thing you're talking to your father about devotion to God, where did you get this from? Why are you talking like this? And this was his reply. He said, you people who always think, people like you who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves. And again, the teachers tried to teach him diplomacy. Again, the teachers tried to get him to think in terms of friends and enemies. And they kept him in the school for quite some time. And then again, his father said, please come tell me what you have learned from your teachers. And then Prahlad said, you should hear, chant, remember, and serve Krishna. You should hear, chant, remember, and serve Krishna. Actually, Prahlad gave the basic practices of bhakti yoga as the best things that he knew. Whoa, at this point, his father wasn't content to just send him back to school and try to educate him, but he said, kill this boy like one amputates a diseased limb. And Hiranyakashipu thus would be firmly into the category of a child abuser. And he tried in many, many ways to kill and torture his son. So he put Prahlad surrounded by demons who were trying to hurt him. Chindi, chindi, chop him up and pierce him. Demons were trying to kill him. They tried to throw him off a cliff. Tried to have a mad elephant step on him. Put him into a pit with poisonous snakes. They threw huge rocks on top of him. He was put in fire. He was given poison to eat, put in the severe cold, put in the strong winds. And Prahlad always remembered the Lord and remained unharmed. So then Hiranyakashipu went back to the teachers, and Hiranyakashipu was actually frightened because here he had gotten all these benedictions from Brahma that he wouldn't be killed inside or outside, in the daytime or the nighttime, by any weapons, by any human, by any animal. And his son, his 5-year-old boy, his little boy, had proved to be invulnerable. So he was actually kind of scared. He did all these austerities to try to become invulnerable. And here his little son was actually invulnerable. But the teachers reassured him. Instead of the teachers saying to him, yeah, there's something wrong with your paradigm, that you've done all these austerities to be invulnerable, and here your child has surpassed you without any austerities. There's something wrong with your paradigm. Instead, they said, don't worry, it's okay. Just send him back to school again. We'll take care of it. He's just a boy. He'll grow out of it. And in this way, materialistic people, when they get this little inkling that, life isn't what it appears to be, there's another force going on, they kind of brush it aside and try to just go on with life. So that's what happened. But Prahlad became very emboldened. Before he was keeping his higher consciousness to himself and just kind of marveling at what was going on in the world, although he'd say something to his teachers. But now that his father tried to kill him in so many ways and was unsuccessful, Prahlad really became emboldened. And it was like, all right, I guess I don't have anything at all to fear, that my father, who's one of the most powerful persons in the universe, has tried to kill me in so many ways and failed. So I can do whatever I want. So he then began to teach the other students in the school, whose parents were all materialistic or demoniac, about devotional service to the Lord. And they said, how did you know all this? And he explained that when Narada was teaching his mother, he was in the womb and he heard all of these instructions. So Prahlad Maharaj gives a lot of spiritual instructions to his classmates. We don't have time tonight to go into all of it in depth, but one of the main instructions that he gives is we are a soul within the body who transmigrates from one body to another. And this instruction is the beginning of spiritual understanding, that I am a spiritual being, I am a soul having a human experience. I am not a human with spiritual experiences. I am a spiritual being having a human experience. I have been in so many bodies. I have been in celestial demigod deva bodies. I have been in various human bodies, maybe on different planets. I have probably been in bodies lower than that of human beings. I am separate from this body. Najayate mriyate vakadachid nayam bhutva bhavitabana bhuyaha ajo nicha sasvato yam purano nahanyate hanyamane shivire. When the body dies, I don't die. I can't get harmed. Nothing in this world has anything to do with me, and nothing can affect me. Now, Prahlad says this incredible statement to his friends. One is happy as long as one does not endeavor for happiness. As soon as one begins his activities for happiness, his conditions of distress begin. Now, there's lots of modern philosophers, and I'm sure ancient ones as well, who've noticed this particular phenomenon, that as soon as we strive for something, then we get a feeling of lack and our miseries begin. When we see that we are already intrinsically happy as spiritual beings within, then we are always happy. We always actually have our happiness within us. It's something that belongs to us. It's part of us. In Sanskrit, it's Sat, Chit, and Ananda. Ananda means happiness. That eternity, knowledge, and bliss are the natural qualities, aptitudes of a spiritual being, such as ourselves. It's not that we ever have to go outside of ourselves for happiness. We don't have to have other people love us. We don't have to have a certain amount of money. We don't have to have a certain amount of possessions. We don't have to have a certain reputation. We don't have to have accomplished anything in the world in order to be happy. And as soon as we think that we do, and try to understand this as a subtle point here. If I think I need somebody to love me in order to be happy, I need to have a certain amount of money in order to be happy, I need to have certain possessions to be happy, I need to have a certain status in order to be happy. As soon as I think that way, then I am subtly accepting the concept that I'm not already happy. And therefore, I start identifying with a state of misery that's not mine. Another important thing that Prahlad teaches is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is the soul and the super soul of all living entities. The Lord is the most dear, and he is the supreme controller. So he teaches that we're not this body, we are a soul, that our happiness is already within us. We don't need to seek our happiness elsewhere. In fact, when we do, we just become unhappy. And that there is the supreme soul, there is God, who is the most dear and who is our most dear, most powerful friend, is controlling everything. And this is such a beautiful thing that Prahlad teaches. He says, in the same favorable way that one sees himself and takes care of himself, take the devotional service to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we all are favorable to ourselves, right? We wash our body, we wash our hair, we cut our nails, we feed our body. We're very absorbed in taking nice care of ourselves. So in the same way, if we take nice care of the Lord, if we serve the Lord, then we regain our spiritual nature, and then we become happy. So this is just a tiny fraction of the instructions that Prahlad gave his schoolmates, and these were all little children, very young children. But the instructions are some of the most deep and insightful philosophy. So Prahlad's father, Hiranyakashipu, had already been very upset that Prahlad was saying to him, you should worship the Lord. Now that Prahlad was causing a disturbance in school, and telling all the other children to serve the Lord. His father was furious. So his father pulls him out of school and he's just like, what's going on here? Why do you think that you can go to the other children and talk about spiritual enlightenment and talk about the soul and talk about God? We want to be materialistic people. And Hiranyakashipu was, as we said, was quite frightened. He was quite frightened that this boy couldn't be killed. And he was quite frightened that this boy was just going against his authority by teaching about spiritual things in the school. And Hiranyakashipu thought, well, my power comes from my austerities, but what's the source of your power? Where are you getting so much courage that you're daring to go against me this way? And then what does Prahlad say to his father? He says, do not discriminate in your heart between enemies and friends. Make your mind equipoised towards everyone. Except for the uncontrolled and misguided mind, there is no enemy within this world. What does that mean? I mean, Prahlad, instead of answering him directly and saying, my power is coming from God, and I mean, he does do that also, but instead of just answering that, he gives him this answer about friends and enemies. That if we really want to have power, we develop this equanimity where we see that everything is favorable. The founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, he writes in his Krishna book in chapter 20 that the materialist see the world as very aggressive, but the devotee sees that everything is happily situated. So when we understand that our supreme friend, the supreme controller, runs everything, then we know that if someone is apparently acting as our friend, that is sanctioned by God. And if someone is apparently acting as our enemy, that is sanctioned by God. God is our supreme friend. Everything that he does is for our benefit. And therefore, everything is for our benefit. Just like we've all had experience that somebody tries to hurt us and they can't. I'm sure we've all had that experience. Someone tries to cause trouble for us in some way and it doesn't work. Or maybe we even tried to cause trouble for someone else that didn't work. And we've also had experience that sometimes people try to help us and it's not effective. Or we've tried to help someone else and it was not effective. So somebody acting as our friend or enemy can only be effective if the Lord allows. And if the Lord allows, then it's for our benefit. So what is the meaning of friends and enemies? I mean, somebody might think that they're my enemy, but I don't have to think that they're my enemy. I can just see that my supreme friend, the Lord, is using everyone, the so-called friends and the so-called enemies, for my good. Sometimes it's in ways that I can appreciate and I can relate to and I can see, and sometimes it's in ways that are confusing. But in all cases, he's trying to be my friend. Just like the parents, when they tell the child, you have to eat your vegetables before you have your cake, the child may think that that's the parents acting like an enemy, right? And when the parent says, oh, we'll buy you this toy, then the child thinks, now my parents are acting as a friend. But someone who's mature sees that in both cases, the parent is acting as a friend. So Hiranyakashipu just doesn't hear this. And again, I'm sure we've experienced that, you give people good advice and they just don't hear it. So then he keeps trying to find out where his son is getting his power, because Hiranyakashipu is thinking, if I could destroy the source of my son's power, or if I could hook into the source of my son's power, then I'd be able to deal with this. So he says, where is your God? And Prahlad just says, he's everywhere. And then it says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Prahlad looked at a pillar and saw that the Lord was hiding in the pillar. And so it says his father noticed that Prahlad was looking at the pillar and he said, Is he in this pillar? And Prahlad's like, yes, he's everywhere. Hiranyakashipu is, I'll kill you if he's not here, which is so ridiculous because Hiranyakashipu had already tried and failed to kill Prahlad in so many ways. So Hiranyakashipu takes his fist and he pounds it against the pillar in his palace. So at first there was this huge noise that shook the whole universe. And then the pillar burst into 1,000,000 pieces. And out from the pillar comes Nrisimhadeva, the fourth incarnation of Vishnu. Now he's called Nrisimhadeva. Nri means person, and Simha means man, and Dev means God. So he is the man-lion God. He is God in the form of a conglomeration of a lion and a human. And he comes out of this pillar. And Hiranyakashipu sees him and he says, who is this half man and half lion? See Lord Vishnu to make a plan to kill me, but no one can kill me. I have all these benedictions. I am invulnerable. I am perfect, powerful, and happy. Nobody can do anything to me. And so this big battle occurs between the Lord, it's Nrisimhadeva, and Hiranyakashipu. And Nrisimhadeva had many arms, which looked like soldiers. And he killed all the demons, rogues, and atheists, the followers of Hiranyakashipu, who came to attack him. And he used his conch shell disc club lotus, killed them even with a lotus flower, and other natural weapons. And there were so many demons attacking that they could not be seen. And in fact, Hiranyakashipu could not be seen in the Lord's effulgence. Now, this is a real photograph taken at our temple in ISKCON Mayapur in Bengal. And it has not been touched up in any way. And this is the deity of Nrisimhadeva showing his own effulgence. So then in the fight, Nrisimhadeva captured the great demon along with his club, like Garuda might capture a great snake. Then Nrisimhadeva gave Hiranyakashipu a chance to slip from his hand, like Garuda sometimes plays with a snake and lets it slip from his mouth. Now, then we have a problem. We have the demigods, the celestial beings, the devas, who had been, their abodes had been usurped by Hiranyakashipu. And when they saw this fight going on between Nrisimhadeva and Hiranyakashipu, they were hiding behind the clouds. They were afraid that if Hiranyakashipu won, they didn't want to be openly cheering for Nrisimhadeva. And so when they saw Nrisimhadeva let go of Hiranyakashipu, they were really upset. great roaring sounds, the Lord had killed Hiranyakashipu on his lap, which is not the land, sea, or sky. He killed him in the doorway, which is not the inside or the outside. He killed him at twilight, which is not day or night. He killed him with his nails, which are not living or unliving. He killed him with his nails, which are not any weapon. In this way, keeping all the promises of Brahma intact, he killed Hiranyakashipu. And he killed many of the demon soldiers. But he was still very angry, and none of the devas could pacify him. Therefore, Brahma pushed Prahlad toward Nrisimhadev and said, "You pacify." Immediately, the Lord's anger dissipated. Now, even though Prahlad was already an exalted soul, when Nrisimhadev put his hands on Prahlad's head, Prahlad felt that he had been thoroughly cleansed and that all of his material contaminations, all of his illusions, all of his material desires were completely gone. He then felt filled with transcendental ecstasy of love, and he started to cry. Prahlad said to the Lord, "I am not afraid of your ferocious mouth and tongue, your eyes bright like the sun, or your frowning eyebrows. I do not fear your sharp, pinching teeth, your garland of intestines." Nrisimhadev had pulled out the intestines of Hiranyakashipu, put them on himself like a necklace. "I'm not afraid of your mane soaked with blood, or your high wedge-like ears, nor do I fear your tumultuous roaring or your nails, which are meant to kill your enemies. I do not wish to be liberated alone, leaving aside all these poor fools and rascals. I wish to bring them back to shelter at your lotus feet." Then the Lord says to Prahlad, "Please ask for some blessing from me. Ask for some benediction." He says, "I enjoy giving benedictions. It is my pastime to give benedictions." And Prahlad says, "No, I'm not a merchant. I didn't worship you for something in exchange. I worship you just because I love you. But if you want to give me something, then let there be no material desire in my heart. And please forgive my father who committed so many horrible acts against you and against me." Then the Lord said, "My dear Prahlad, a devotee like you never wants any kind of material opulences. Nonetheless, I order you to enjoy the opulence of the demons in this world, acting as their king until the end of the duration of time occupied by Manu." So Nrisimhadev, he says, "I know you don't want anything material, but I want you to become king of this demon race. As a saintly person, you'll guide them rightly, and you can enjoy their opulences." And then Brahma crowned Prahlad as the king of the demons. All glories to Lord Nrisimhadev. Turning back to friends and enemies, we can say someone is our friend if they help us to connect with the Lord, who's our supreme friend. But no one else is really a friend. Other so-called friends, all they're doing is being the agents of our own good karma that we've earned. Just like I have a package waiting for me at my daughter's house, but I ordered it. So it's not that the delivery man is my friend. He's simply delivering what I already ordered. So people who are able to do good for us are simply giving us the results of our own good karma. And who can hurt us? We are infallible. We are the soul. We cannot be hurt by anything. So what is the possibility of anybody acting as our enemy? And even if superficially they hurt us, then they're simply, again, giving us the result of our own bad karma. Now, at the beginning of this presentation, we talked about asking ourselves how much time, energy, anxiety we're putting into managing our friendships and enemies. Suppose that we didn't have that. What would our life be like? What would our life be like if we were incapable of having the thought, so-and-so is my enemy? If we just simply could not think that thought. If we had firm friendship and faith in the Lord and we just never thought of others as friends and enemies. Let's just take a moment and think, what would my life be like? What kind of life would I have?
Tabakara kamala barina kama singam dalita hirana kasipu tono ringam ke samadrita narahari rupa jaya jagadish hari Jaya Jagadish Hari Jaya Jagadish Hari.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that presentation, and we have about 15 minutes if anybody has any questions or comments or discussions.
Krishna, thank you so much for that beautiful presentation. That was very nicely put together. I just had when you pose that question between kind of seeing friends and enemies as equal and not distinguishing between the two. I was just listening to Srila Prabhupada today, and he was talking on that point of, in the relative world, we always distinguish between the two dualities, friends, enemies, happiness, distress, heat and cold, so on. But when one is on the absolute plane or has transcendental consciousness, they don't have these distinctions. And it seems like Prahlad Maharaj, he had that transcendental consciousness where he saw everyone as equal spirit souls and didn't have enemies, but just was a well-wisher of all living entities. And that last question, you said, what would it be like? It'd be like what Srila Prabhupada exemplified by just being a loving friend and well-wisher to everyone and showing that unlimited compassion to all living entities. And somehow, I guess we should try to also follow in those footsteps of Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada too.
It's actually part of our sadhana. We tend to think that those who don't see friends and enemies, that, they're a different kind of being than we are. That I have to just, right now, I have to get revenge against my enemies and neutralize my enemies and take care of my friends. And someday when I'm elevated, it won't be like that. But it's part of our sadhana. It's actually part of the process of sadhana bhakti, is to practice not seeing anyone as friends or enemies, to see that Krishna is working through everyone. So someone has written here, then we're naturally peaceful. Why don't each of you write something in the chat? I know some of you are looking on Facebook or maybe on YouTube, but at least those of you who are on Zoom, why don't you each write something in the chat? Let's try to feel this. Let's not try to be intellectual about this, but let's just try to actually feel this. So if I was incapable of thinking someone is my enemy, someone is my friend, I just couldn't think like that. I just saw Krishna's hand everywhere. I saw Krishna's benevolence everywhere in everyone's action, the so-called favorable actions and the so-called unfair. So let's think about that. Let's say for the rest of the day today and for tomorrow, whatever anybody did with me, whatever happened to me, I just saw everything as loving. I saw everything as the hand of a loving God, that everything had a loving purpose. Let's just try to, what would that feel like? So why don't you try to write that in the chat window? How does that feel? What do you get? What does that experience equate to? And if you're on Facebook, maybe you could also write something there in the comments on Facebook.
Mataji, I just want to say thank you so much. I've seen you many times on the internet, and I just feel so honored to have listened to you personally today. I certainly wish you all the best of everything, and Hare Krishna to you and your loved ones, and the best of health.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm trying to see who you are. Who are you?
I'm Nicole. I'm Nicole from New Brunswick.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, my picture is not there.
Your
I'm in my
picture's not there. I was going to highlight you, but it's just some black.
I'm in my pajamas. I apologize.
Not a
I
problem.
just finished the prashadam and everything. So thank you so much.
Okay, we get nourished, we get love, nourished, freedom, peace. We get someone have what we wouldn't have. We wouldn't have anger and hatred. We would have love, solidarity, peace, equal vision. Anybody else? What would we have? What would our life be like? What we wouldn't have anxiety. Okay. So what are we discovering? Who's causing our suffering? Who's causing our suffering?
Ourselves.
Yes. Yes. We are causing our suffering by how we choose to view what happens in life. Yes. Is God causing us to suffer? No. Can you all experience that right now? Prahlad Maharaj was externally being given so much suffering by his father, but he didn't experience it as suffering. He experienced that there was Krishna's hand everywhere, Krishna's love everywhere. So anyone else have a question or comment?
So I have a question,
Yes.
if possible. So that was a really nice exercise to, I guess, just kind of sit down and be perspective and think, oh yeah, well if that person who's on my case at the time at work or there, she's actually or he's actually, is doing Krishna's work and it's actually through Krishna's mercy, right, that this is happening to me, right? Then you feel nourished, you feel happy, and everything's there. So is that a recommended process for us to practically reflect like that more often? Should we add it into our practice, or is there some kind of a way that we're doing it now because we have, I guess, the association of yourselves and the other devotees, and it's easy to remember. Is there a formula or some kind of a way for us to always feel that shelter somehow? How can we feel that
I'm so glad you asked that question. Yes, because this is a sadhana. So it's a question, what do we do to feel that? So let's take some specific instance, okay? Somebody insults us in some way, or threatens us in some way. You're a terrible person, and I'm going to talk to somebody and you're going to lose your situation and you're going to lose this and you're going to lose that. And so our mind immediately goes to fear, right? Immediately go to fear. Oh no, somebody's going to hurt me. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I could do this. I could do that. I could talk to this person. I could write this letter. I could take this action. And instead, the mind's doing that. Okay. And then we kind of step back and just look at the mind as separate from ourselves. We look at the mind as separate from ourselves and say, okay, the mind is simply trying to protect the false me. That's its job. The body and the mind have a job. The body has a mind for self-preservation. The body has a duty for self-preservation of itself. The mind has a duty to preserve itself. And it's not me. I'm the soul. I can't be hurt. Yeah, Krishna says I can't be hurt. And Krishna says that if I'm equipoised to friends and enemies and happiness and distress and honor and dishonor and fame and infamy and heat and cold, that then I'll be very dear to him. So how can I use this situation to please Krishna? And there's going to be 100 answers to that. How can I use this situation to please Krishna? How can I deal with that so-called enemy in a way as to please Krishna? And similarly, when people deal with us as a friend, that we may become attached and we may think, well, this person is my shelter. Well, I can depend on this person. This person is always going to be there for me. We're attached to having fear at the retribution of an enemy. And we're attached to maintaining our friendships. And then again, we think this is just the mind telling me that this person is my friend. It's just the mind, again, trying to preserve my false identity. And Krishna says, make the mind your friend. Well, who's my real friend? My real friend is Krishna. So I'm grateful that Krishna is teaching me through the friend. I'm grateful Krishna is teaching me through the enemy. And we learn to practice this. It's hard. Sometimes we'll fail, but many times we'll be successful. We'll look at the mind and say, is this stuff true? Is it actually true that this person is my enemy? Is it absolutely true that this person is my enemy? Is that absolute truth? And when I believe my mind, what happens? I feel fear, I feel anxiety, I feel attachment. And if I believe Krishna, how do I feel? I feel peaceful, I feel loving, I feel happy, I feel grateful. So what do I want? What do I want? Do I want to believe the blabberings of the mind that are all on the material platform to protect my ego, or do I want to believe Krishna? And practice. It gets easier and easier and easier. Pretty soon it becomes so habitual that we hardly even notice the blabberings of the mind. It becomes a background sound, like, a highway noise or something, that if we live near a highway like we do here, where you don't even notice it anymore. Is that all right?
Yes, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
A wonderful class. What if we're in a situation, let's say hypothetically, whereby we're not the recipients of someone's insults. Let's say you have a professor, you're a professor yourself, and there's a student, maybe late teens, early 20s, who's always being picked on by the professor. Let's say he's berating the student in front of other people, embarrassing him, and we're friends with the student. We try to explain to the student, no, this is, don't take it personally. It's him, it's not you. And, let's try to meditate on it. And, they may or may not be a devotee, let's say, hypothetically speaking. And unfortunately, it's not working with the student. He's very depressed, and he doesn't want to necessarily attend class anymore. And the professor, his beratement continues. And, we try to sort of use the pacifist approach of saying, well, it's okay, just accept it. it's his issues. He's not really your enemy, but it's not working for the student, and you try. so it's just what I'm trying to say is sometimes the world is cruel, and we as devotees are nice people. We're gentle. We're raised to be, I've been a devotee all my life. We're raised to be gentle and compassionate and understanding, and treat your enemy as your friend, for instance. Be a well-wisher for others, but the world isn't always that nice, right? The world can be cruel, and it can set us up to vulnerability sometimes as devotees. So what would be your recommendation in such a situation?
It's interesting. I've been really meditating on this statement. I've been meditating on it for years, but especially lately, where Prabhupada says in the 20th chapter of Krishna book that to the materialist, the world is very aggressive, but to the devotee, everything is happily situated. So this concept that the world is a cruel place is something that we see through materialistic vision. The world is not a cruel place. It's a perfect place. It's perfectly balanced. It's perfectly in harmony. Everything is beneficial. Everything is based on love. Everything. Now, that doesn't mean that we never strive for justice. It doesn't mean that we simply go around smiling all the time. Prabhupada says, you have not seen the Vaishnava like Hanuman and Arjuna, who will fight for justice. But what's the whole message of the Bhagavad-Gita? Fight for justice with detachment. Fight for justice without thinking about gain or victory or defeat, gain or loss, victory or defeat, honor, dishonor, fame and infamy, friends and enemies. If we fight for justice, then we fight for justice as a service. Now, if we're dealing with somebody who's under the law of karma, then all I can do is be an agent of their good karma or an agent of their bad karma. I can't change someone's karma. So if somebody's getting picked on and I report it to the authorities and I fix it, he was destined to be free of that. And I just came along as the agent. And if I report it and nothing happens, then he's destined not to be free of it. And I'm not able to do anything because I can't surmount his own karma. I can't change his order. It's not that the, UPS, FedEx, postal carrier, that they can change. If I placed an order from, Amazon or Walmart, or I placed an online order, and all the delivery person can do is deliver it. They can't say, oh, wow, I wish you had ordered something better. It's not within their purview. So why should we do good to others, and why should we try to do justice in the world? It helps us. It helps our karma. If I work for justice, it gives me good karma. I can't actually change anyone else's karma. But we should still try to do good for others, because when we try to do good for others, it's good for ourselves. And if I ignore somebody suffering and I just say, well, that's their karma, let them suffer, then that gives me bad karma. Is that clear from the karmic point of view?
Yes, I mean, ahimsa.
Okay, we're going to go on to a higher platform, but I just want to know, is that from a karmic point of view, is that clear?
From a karmic point of view, it is clear. We were taught ahimsa, or do no harm, and as you were saying, part of doing no harm is of course not to be negative or aggressive towards others, but also if some wrong or injustice is being done, it's important to speak up, as you were saying, right?
Exactly.
But not for the purpose of trying to gain benediction, but just for the purpose of doing, because of love of God and love of humanity, right? Not.
Well, that's on the platform of Sattva-gun, or on the platform of Bhakti, where we work for justice and we try to do the right thing just because it's the right thing. Now, on the platform of Bhakti, if I am reporting this incident to a higher authority to please Krishna, then I actually can do good for that student beyond that student's karma. I can become an agent of mercy. Mercy means something you haven't paid for. So I can become an agent of mercy by representing the Lord in a situation. And that's something we can do that's beyond the law of karma. So should we act to try to rectify the situation? Yes, in terms of karma, that's part of ahimsa, and that's part of our getting good karma. And should I act to rectify the situation? Yes, because if I do that to please Krishna, who does paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya chatusritam, then I can act as a positive agent beyond karma. But ultimately, it's up to the Lord. And therefore, the external results may or may not be there. That depends on him. But devotee doesn't mean we just sit back and do nothing and just teach people. And nor is a devotee that because there's no real enemies and friends, and because everything is happily situated, it doesn't mean that I take no action. It just means that this was Arjuna's confusion. Arjuna kept saying, in the Bhagavad-Gita, well, why should I fight in this war? I'll just perform Buddha yoga and be detached. And Krishna is saying, no, fight is my instrument. Fight with love, fight with detachment. All right, I do need to go. I actually have a call here I have to attend to. So thank you very much. All glories to Lord Nrisimhadev. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much.
Haribol Mahalakshmi.
Kirtan, kirtan, kirtan.
Some kirtan? It's just some kirtan. Try. We have a few minutes. What time? 6:30? We got 10, 15 minutes. We got Mridanga? You can grab it. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gaura Premanande, Hare Hare Om. Shri Gaura Nitai ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai.